Shiny Finance. Today's session is based on acrylics, and I'm going to demonstrate painting the surreal painting that I'm calling Let There Be Light. All the material information and all my social media presence as usual is mentioned in the video description in the box below, so please check it out. Also, I would like to let you know that I do not have the initial footage of this painting videoed, so for that purposes I'm using a few work in progress those pictures, or rather slides, to demonstrate what I have done in the initial stages. I hope that works out for you. Let me know in the comments what you think about the painting and the process, or if you have any additional questions, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Initially I started by painting the whole canvas with a continuous gradient of blue. Then the bottom half I created a semicircle which would later represent the earth, and I made it a lighter shade of blue and kind of made it a slow gradient from a lighter blue to darker blue. Once the general shape was established, I started working on the little cloud-like structures on the back, or which would be represent the galaxy later. Once that was done, the next step I painted, or rather glazed over the galaxy cloud shapes with shades of quinacridone magenta and phthalo blue. What it does is that it pushes some of the clouds a little bit behind and tints them with a light tint of color, and builds a very nice gradual transitional look which we generally see in galaxies. The picture quality is not great, so pardon me because of that. Now you can see that I am slowly building up little cloud shapes on the earth. It is best to use a reference photo in this case to build the cloud shape, because it is a little bit different from usual clouds in the sky, how clouds look from on the surface of the earth. If you're looking from a satellite, that kind of look you want to achieve here. Now you can see the entire earth surface kind of filled with the cloud structures. One thing to remember is that you want to fade it out gradually from the center outwards. Once I have the general layout of the earth and the galaxy background done, I started to put on the structure of the body or the subject that I wanted to put. And in this case you can see that I'm being very sloppy, not really bothering about the details or the color. I'm just generally blocking the shapes because I am going to work in multiple layers, which will slowly help in building up the right colors, the right shape, and take care of everything eventually. So in the beginning I'm just generally using bold colors of white and shades of peach color to just block in the shapes of the body and the cloth, and just putting in structures where I want them to be, just blocking kind of the overall layout of the painting is what I am targeting at this point. As the video starts, you can see that I am first finishing off the background, which is generally my approach in most of my paintings. I work from backwards to forwards. I finish up the background first, and then I move on to the subject matter which is closer to me, so from backwards to forward. So in this painting, the background that is farthest away from me is the galaxy or the universe kind of setting. And this kind of setting, galaxies or universe, typically looks best when you do multiple layers. So I am adding my last couple of layers here, and you can see that I'm using predominantly blue, white, and a little bit of purple, and sometimes a little bit of magenta here and there to finish off the final layers. As I'm using white, I am making sure I'm using it sparingly, otherwise it will create a very foggy, misty look, which I am not going for. I want the background to be very vibrant blue, like the galaxies generally look. And now I'm going to create some stars. What I do is I take a stiff round brush, dab it into some white paint, and then sprinkle the stars on top of the whole background. What it does, it kind of evenly creates a lot of white specks, and which gives the impression that some of the stars are far behind and some are much closer, because you have no control on your spraying, so you create different uneven spots. Now I'm adding a few bigger spots here and there to create a little bit brighter stars, which will represent the stars which are closer to the viewer, or closer to the viewer's eyes rather. Once the background is done, I am moving on to the face. Initially, you have seen that it was very loosely blocked with some basic colors. Now when I'm finally actually working on the face, I am putting on, or starting off with putting on the darker layers first. My dark layers consist mainly of purples mixed with brown, and as when I say brown, I actually am using raw umber. So raw umber purple and a little bit of blue here and there is where I am adding the darks. Once the darks are put in, I am putting in lighter layers, and I'm slowly adjusting the darks and lights, continuously putting more darker layers, adding in more lighter layers to get my values right. If you add the darker layers first and then add the lighter layers on top of it, it is a very, for me it makes it easier to judge the values. But everybody has different ways of working, so it's not that you have to put in the darker layers first, but somehow it helps me to work better. You can see that I'm constantly adjusting the amount of lights and darks, and with that what actually happens is that I'm applying additional layers of paint, which increases the depth of the painting eventually. So the more layers you can put in, the darker, or the more depth your painting will have, and the more realistic that will look, because each layer of paint will reflect light differently and thus create an illusion of depth. Now once the face is more or less done, I'm moving on to the neck area, and I'm following the same principles, putting on the darker layers first, the darker shadows, the mid-tones first, and then coming back with the lighter layers. You can see that for the neck area I've initially used way too much water, which was not a desired thing unless you're looking for that water spill effect, which I was not looking for. But anyways, I added some more paint, and with multiple layers of paint it finally worked out. You can see that once the darker layers established, it is much easier to put on the lighter layers on top of it. Moving on to the hands, this was probably the hardest part of the painting, because I did not have a very good reference photo of the hands though. So what I did is I made my son fold up his hands, and I took a photo of that, and I finally used that as a reference, because no matter whose hands they are, the actual positioning of the hands will still be the same. As I was doing in case of the face and neck, I am again putting on the darker layers or the darker shadows first, and then coming back with the lighter areas in case of the hand as well. So you can see that once again, like the face, it will take multiple layers of paint to get to the stage where I think it is kind of finished, and still it will not look finished, because I know that eventually most of the hand area is going to be covered by the rays of light, So since I have that in my mind, I'm not putting stress on too much details. I'm trying to get a very good contrast, lights and darks and highlights properly, but I'm not focusing too much on each and every detail because a lot of the hand area is going to get covered eventually, and you will see how that will happen. Once again, the darks first, and once the darks are done, the lighter layers. And you will see that for this particular painting, for the darker layers, I've used a lot of purples and browns. Now for skin tones, you would think that brown, yeah, that seems right, but purple, but it's a very common thing. Actually, once you learn to do paintings and figurative paintings a lot, you will see that skin tones, although they have a lot of warm colors, for the cooler shadows they need some cool colors as well, and purples and blues actually are required to add in those cooler tones and create the right tone. Now I am painting the little belly region that is peeking through the cloth, and once again in this area I am putting in the darks first, and then the mid-tones, and then the lighter areas, and adjusting the lights and darks as long as I don't get to the point where I think it looks finished. Although I am showing you a much closer look, this whole painting is 11 by 14, so these areas that I'm focusing on are probably 2 to 3 inches at a time. For the cloth, I am again establishing the darker areas, and this time with blue, gray, and purple. So most of the cloth areas, the darker shadows are created by blue and purple, but I have mixed in a little bit of black and white with it, white to lighten it of course, but the black is mixed in so that the purple and the blues do not come off too vibrant and take out the whole ambience of the painting. I do want the shadows right, but I do not want the shadows to be more vibrant than the background or the subject's face itself. So adding in some of the darker areas, making the darks darker and the lights lighter to create the contrast, because it is the contrast that creates the beauty in a painting. So I always believe in making the darker areas really dark and the lighter areas really light, and hyping up the contrast as much as possible, because that is how you direct the viewer's eyes to the focal point of the painting. In this case, the focal point of the painting is the face, and that is why you will see that there is a lot of play of light and darks in the face. Finally, I'm coming back with the ray of light in the eyes, which gives the painting its name, Let There Be Light. And for the light, I am first putting in a lot of white paint in the center and then fanning it out by drawing kind of straight lines. If you have trouble freehanding the straight lines, feel free to use a ruler to guide your hands, but with practice that will come too. I'm signing off the painting, and with that we come to the end of the painting. I hope you enjoyed watching the painting. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments as usual. Give me a like if you like the painting, and do not forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.